What is the worst scenario for the 2024 U.S. election? Biden dies weeks before the election. Trump wins but has a heart attack on live television during his acceptance speech. And dies. Trump's VP is Kanye West. The Earth instantly becomes completely stationary. Biden wins close electoral college, with a couple right-leaning swing states making the difference in his favor. Biden dies during the transition period, and those swing states try to change their electors rather than make Harris the president. Chaos ensues, etc. I win somehow. George Santos? Whatever ends up happening will be the worst case, I'm sure. This entire post is nightmare fuel. Alien invasion, Kong wins presidency. Nuclear war before the election even happens. Probably a repeat of the intense division and widespread misinformation we saw in recent years, leading to even greater polarization and distrust in the electoral process. Imagine if the election results are so closely contested that it leads to widespread protests, legal battles dragging on for months, and a general sense of chaos and instability. It's the kind of situation where no matter who wins, a significant portion of the country feels deeply dissatisfied and mistrustful of the outcome. This is the one. Trump and Biden tie, 269,269. But Biden wins the popular vote. Actually a very plausible scenario. Biden could win every state he won in 2020 except PA and GA. Clinch Maine's 2nd district. And the Electoral College would be tied. Constitution says that an EC tie goes to the state legislature's House delegations by state. Given there are more states with majority R House members than D members, 26 to 22, we could have a scenario where nobody wins the Electoral College, and Biden wins millions and millions of more votes than Trump, possibly even more than the 8 meters he won by in 2020. And yet Trump becomes president. Democrats would be furious. They would argue that President Biden's incumbency and his popular vote win should grant him another term in the case of no winner in the EC. Their politicians, high-ranking ones, like senators and governors, would begin openly calling President Trump's second term illegitimate in a way that they never did after the Russia interference. At the same time, Trump took even the slightest hints that some Dems saw his 2016 win as tainted. Incredibly personally, it arguably set the stage for his entire first term. Should Dems openly start saying he's not the true president, he'd take his anger and fury out on both Democrat politicians and voters. His authoritarian insecurities would skyrocket. Biden and the Dems' support for the country's long-standing institutions would be called into question, as technically, the USA's institutions would lead to Trump receiving a legitimate second term under an EC tie. But they would undoubtedly be ripping the House delegation process to hell and back in terms of their public rhetoric. After all, the guy who both didn't win 270 or the popular vote would now be president. Essentially, the anger and division in the country would reach a whole new level. Lost faith in elections and democracy would spread from being a Republican phenomenon to being bipartisan. Democrats would see Republicans as stealing an election, while Republicans would see Democrats as being hypocrites and wanting to rip up the Constitution. Previously moderate allies in the Congress, including senators, would likely develop radical ideas about the opposing party being crooks and cheaters. And revenge on the opposition would become a mainstay promise of future elections. Mass protests would ensue that would make the post-2016 election protests look like child's play. Trump would likely use the chaos to consolidate power, advance his crackpot, unitary executive, legal theory, invoke the Insurrection Act, and put immense pressure on his Justice Department to criminally prosecute Democrats questioning his win as seditionists and insurrectionists. Trump is found guilty in Georgia and is sent to prison, but he wins the election. So now we have an elected president who is in prison but can technically legally pardon themselves, which could cause a constitutional crisis. All I know is that I have a bad feeling about this. And strange new candidate takes the Oval Office by a landslide. Their name is Vladimir Putin. Trump wins, Project 2025 commences. The worst possible situation is that Biden wins the popular vote but the Electoral College is tied. So the vote goes to the House. And the Democrats win the House, but it doesn't matter because the way the House votes in this situation is one vote per each state. And the red states outnumber the blue states and vote for Trump despite both Biden's popular vote win and the Democrats being elected to take the House. I honestly believe we wouldn't survive the ensuing chaos. With Trump withdrawing from NATO, our alliances, and starting war with Iran while Americans back home rioted in the streets. Democrats in Congress refused to consider any of his actions legitimate. And a Supreme Court no one has any faith in continuing to uphold those actions. Biden wins the popular vote, and should win the Electoral College as well. But Republican-controlled state legislatures award the delegates to Trump in open defiance of the vote. If that happens, I'm not sure which would be worse. It's contested and leads to civil war, or it's accepted and leads to a fascist dictatorship. In a gaffe, Biden endorses Trump. Of the ones not mentioned, 269,269 electoral tie that goes to the GOP-controlled House state delegations. Which leans GOP. Thanks for the corrections. Trump wins despite not winning the popular vote. Again. RFK takes too many Democrat and moderate Republican votes, accidentally becomes president.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.